Hi everyone, it is Kendéll Lenice, and I hope everyone had an amazing weekend. First of all, my weekend was eventful and busy, very very busy. I promised that I would do a recap and tell you all about Dick Gregory's homegoing service and tribute. I was fortunate enough to be able to attend along with his family and other people who loved and admired and respected Mr. Dick Gregory. So on Saturday, the funeral was held in Landover, Maryland. Let me try to clear my throat. It's been a long weekend. This is Monday. Happy Monday. I'm exhausted, but I'm still here. So as promised, again, I am going to just do a recap of Dick Gregory's homegoing service on Saturday. So again, it was held in Landover, Maryland at why can't I think of the name of the church? It'll come to me. I'm sorry. Good morning, Latoya. City of Praise. That was the church. City of Praise in Landover, Maryland. First of all, this church was huge. It was huge. I understand why he had it there, and I think he had affiliations to that church over the years. So it's a church that's been around for a long time. But when we first went, let me just explain why I went. Because I have the utmost respect for Dick Gregory and what he did for not only Black people, but humanity, the human race, in all cultures and all races. He fought injustices. He gave up his lucrative comedian, I would say comic job or comedian career to fight the good fight. For those of you that don't know about Dick Gregory, he was the first African American comedian to cross barriers and to be on white stages performing for white people as the entertainment. He was the very first one. He was a waymaker. He was a pioneer in that aspect and many other aspects to come. But he gave up his lucrative career to fight for injustices and fight for the civil rights of other people, not only Black people, but of course he was Black and he had a passion for Black people. Back then we were Negroes, and you know the names evolved. So I'm going to stick with Black people. So I always had the utmost respect for him, and it was important for me, especially me being in Maryland. I could not miss that ceremony to pay my respects to him. And I'm so fortunate enough that I got a chance to lay eyes on Mr. Dick Gregory this year. Earlier this year, I ran into him in Whole Foods. And I was with my daughters, and I was like, I think that's Dick Gregory. And my daughters, because I always spot people. And I typically don't say anything. I just see them over there. I even spotted Stevie Wonder in the mall in an Apple store at one point, but I'll talk about that later. But we were in Whole Foods, and I was like, I think that's Dick Gregory. And we walked past the aisle, and my daughter was like, are you sure? And then I backed up. Sure enough, it was Dick Gregory and his wife of 60 years, Lillian, and they were with a store attendant. So it was him. So I walked down the aisle, and of course, I'm not going to ask Dick Gregory to take a selfie with me or to pose for any type of picture, because I hold him at high regard. But I did get a chance to say something to him. I said, just thank you. I forgot what I said, but I was just like, thank you. Thank you for all you've done and all of that. My voice was trembling because he is someone to me. He didn't just talk the talk. He walked the walk. Hey, Miss Joyce, he walked the walk. So I'm so fortunate, and how cool is that I got a chance to lay eyes on him before he passed away in August. So that was, pretty awesome to me. And I write about him on Facebook from time to time, and I write about him on Instagram, and I always talk about him and I encourage my children to find out more about him because, and I encourage you all too, because once you do that, you'll be like, wow, wow. And that's the issue we have these days. No one wants to take a stand and fight for what's right. Everybody's career is more important. Everybody's personal issues are more important than human issues. And I think that that's whack, because we wouldn't be where we are today as a people if someone didn't step up and say, this is wrong and I'm going to fight for you. I'm going to fight for you. I'm going to fight for you. I'm going to fight for all injustices. And he was one of the ones that did that. When I think about now, I think about Colin Kaepernick, because he's doing similar things. He's putting his career on the line to stand up for what's right. And if it costs him a job and it costs him money, he's willing to make that sacrifice. How many people do that? Gregory was one of the first people to do that. And as so it was important for me to go. It was important for me to make sure my daughter went. Unfortunately, my youngest daughter was in school. She was on her way home, so she didn't get a chance to go. But I wanted her to experience that rich history and to be a part of something big. And when I tell you it was big, let me just break it down. So when we got to the church, of course, it was important for me to get there early because I wanted to have a seat. The church was huge, as I stated, and it held 15,000 people. My daughter was like, this looks like a college campus. It was huge. It was a huge church. But when I had the little invite, and it was open to the public as well as his immediate family and his extended family all around the world, it said 6,000 people could attend the public celebration. So that was outside of the distinguished guest and his family and everyone else. They decided to invite, they meaning the family. So I was like, he made an impact on this world. It's going to be packed. People are going to be coming from all around the world. I want to make sure I'm in the house. So doors opened at 3 o'clock. The ceremony was starting at 4. Needless to say, I got there even earlier than that, and so did a lot of other people, because the lines were long to get in. And everybody was there. Everybody was conscious, power to the people. And I'm talking about Native Americans. I'm talking about white Americans. I'm talking about African Americans. I mean, there were people there of all races, creeds, and colors, which I loved, because it wasn't just to support a black man in his homegoing service. It was to support someone who was righteous, someone who was conscious, and someone who cared about people. And you can see the impact he made just looking at the rainbow of people that were in attendance. There were old people, there were young people, there were children there, and it was pretty fascinating and pretty darn amazing, if you ask me. So we stayed in the line, and I think this was the hottest day it's been in a while. People were sweating. It was really, really, really hot, and everybody was in their layers of clothing outside. So we waited outside for a long time. We ended up waiting in the wrong line, as did a lot of other people. So when we got in, I was like, we're getting a seat. And then the other line was still going in. We were inside. I'll talk to people. So I was like, I got in, and I got in where I fit in. I got a very nice seat to witness this history. So we got in there, like, they were supposed to open the doors at 3. I think maybe we got in about 3:15, 3:20, something like that. We took our seats, and it started roughly around 4 o'clock. And it was powerful. I'm going to try to keep this video kind of short, but still try to give you, and I left the program at home. I'm going to try to show that. I wish I would have bought that because it had the itinerary on there. So I'm going to do it based off memory. So it opened up, of course, with the pastor of the church and the first lady of that church, just welcoming everybody as family into their home, if you will. And everybody was in attendance. When I first drove in, I was like, is that Roland Martin? It was Roland Martin, and I understand he was doing a special for TV One. So I saw Roland Martin probably like 15 times, walking back and forth and in the hallway and all of that. But there were a lot of people in there. I'm going to give some of the highlights because let me explain something to you. This funeral was a good 7 hours. It was long. It was long. People weren't moving. They even had food trucks outside because it was so long. And I soon discovered when I went looking for just a snack or a vending machine or something to eat, I discovered the food trucks out there. But his daughter, Ayana, let me just explain. He has 10 children by his wife, Lillian, and his wife, Lillian, is the backbone. Everybody was saying if you needed him, and he even said this, if you needed him, call Lillian. She knows my schedule. And she was his scheduler. She was his manager. She was his agent. She was his backbone. She was his ride or die. She was his everything. Being married 60 years, and she was an unsung hero herself and a mother of the movement, like so many wives were of Martin Luther King, of Malcolm X, of Medgar Evers. Most of the wives were there to hold them down when their husbands were out fighting the good fight, getting death threats given to the family. They were there holding everything down at the home front and even in jail. I know Dick Gregory's wife was pregnant and she was thrown in jail. Dick Gregory has been in jail hundreds and hundreds of times, not because he was a criminal, because the things that were going on around him were injustices and they were actually criminal. He was friends with Dr. Martin Luther King, Medgar Evers, everybody that I said, and more and more and more and more. The daughters of the movement, as they called them, were there in attendance. So we had Martin Luther King's son. You had in the sons of the movement, Martin Luther King's son. You had Richard Pryor's daughter, Rain. You had Medgar Evers' daughter. You had Malcolm X, Malik Shabazz's daughter there, and everybody was there because of Dick Gregory. And Dick Gregory's daughter, Ayana, was the one, it seemed like, that orchestrated everything, because everybody that came to speak, they were saying I had to come because I love Dick Gregory. And Ayana called me, so she put together an amazing show. She even did a song for her father and she performed it, and I'm going to post that later. Her voice is awesome. The message was just tear-jerking, and she got a chance to perform a song that she wrote specially for her father before he died. And he said, wow, I'm the only one out of all my slain friends, because keep in mind, he's the only one from that time really still living, going through what he went through and fighting that fight, because everyone else was murdered. You guys know the history. And he told his daughter, I'm crying because I get to hear how you feel about me while I'm still alive. And I think it's so important to give people their flowers while they're here and show them what they mean to you while they're here on earth. So he got a chance to do that. And baby, she performed that song. Like I said, I'm going to post it. It was powerful, 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 powerful. So the daughters and sons of the movement, as they call them, they got a chance to speak. So did a lot of his friends. Auntie Maxine Waters got a chance to speak, and she said she was reclaiming her time. And if you don't know about reclaiming her time for Maxine Waters, Google that. But I'm going to post that too. I recorded her whole speech in dedication to Dick Gregory. It was powerful. And she mentioned Bill Cosby and Camille Cosby. Now, I've never met Camille Cosby, but that's my cousin, Camille Cosby, Bill Cosby's wife. That's my cousin. I found out at family reunions. I'm not close to her or anything like that, so I'm not claiming that we're tight like that. But that is my cousin. Down the... One second. Hi, daughter. I'm doing a Facebook Live. I'm going to call you right back. Okay. All right. So yeah, so Maxine Waters called out Bill Cosby and Camille Cosby, and they said, she said, as a politician, I'm not supposed to call out Bill Cosby. Everybody knows why, or Camille Cosby, but she talked about how they were there for her when her mother passed away and all of that. So Bill Cosby and Camille Cosby was there. Maxine Waters, powerful. If you know anything about Maxine Waters, you know she plays no games. Like, she says what she means what she says, and she speaks with conviction and authority. So I'll post that just for time purposes. I'm gonna go into what she said, because if I really talk about the 7-8 hour funeral, we would be here all day, and I got work to do, and I know you guys have better things to do than to listen to me speak. Okay, so Maxine Waters was there. India Ari, she was there with her beautiful self, and she sang Good Man. If you don't know about that song, it's a older song, and she said Dick Gregory's daughter said that was laser point on when it came to the relationship between his mother and father. So India Ari sang that, and if you know about that song, just to hear the lyrics already makes you cry. And then when you see the backdrop of Dick Gregory and his wife in the background, yeah, no dry eyes in there. So I recorded that. Oh, hey, Susie Q. Thank you, sweetie pie. I'll put that on also with India Ari's performance. And then who else did we have? We had a lot of pastors and ministers speak on his behalf that fought the good fight with him, that were in jail with him. They said when they were fighting, I can't remember which fight because he fought so many, that they were in jail once a week. Like, they went to jail every week for like 45 days. And the ironic thing is, Dick Gregory passed away because of his hunger strikes. And look it up, Google Dick Gregory, and hey Jay, look up Dick Gregory and you'll read about the hunger strikes that he did, that he was so adamant to have and to do, to fight for injustices and fight for what was right and what was wrong. So unfortunately, that's what ended up killing him, just his organs from so many hunger strikes and all of that. So just look that part up. But so many people spoke. Who else got up there? Joe Morton. Now, if you don't know who Joe Morton is by the name Joe Morton, you know who Papa Pope is if you watch Scandal. And if you're old school like me and watched A Different World, then you know who Byron is. Remember, he was going to marry Whitley. So he's an amazing actor, Mr. Joe Morton. And he did a one-man show on Broadway in honor of Dick Gregory, when Dick Gregory obviously was still alive. And he did a piece. I think it was called Turning It Loose, or Turn Loose, or something like that. And he did a piece, and that was powerful. I recorded that also, so I'll try to post that as well. And who else? Let's just see. So it was so many tributes. Stevie Wonder, of course. I always say, when Stevie Wonder passes, who is going to sing at his funeral? Because every slain leader, he sings at the funeral. Stevie Wonder is always in attendance. You know, he pays his respects to everyone. When he passes away, I want to know who's going to sing at Stevie Wonder's funeral, because he's at everybody's funeral. And Dick Gregory, JJ, it's true, right? He's there, everybody just singing, you know, with his, you know, you already know I'm not going to do a Stevie Wonder impression, but he's always there at a funeral. So let's see, who else was there? So many people there paying their respects to Jay said facts about Stevie Wonder. So many people there were paying their respects. So many amazing tributes. It was a Native American tribute, and in 1968, Dick Gregory helped the indigenous people, because we all know who Native Americans are. So we already know who was here first, like research your history. So the Native Americans were there in their full-on garb, looking amazing. And Dick Gregory was a big part in making headways in the Native American society and for the Native American people since 1968. He fought the fight for them and the injustices that they have in America. Look it up, know your history. But everybody, he was fighting for what was right, what was fair, what was honest, what was just due, just humanity. Where are the people now fighting for what's right? Al Sharpton can't do it by himself. Everybody has to stand up and do that. Do you know the legacy that Dick Gregory has left? That he left behind, that he taught his children? Are we teaching our children to be leaders? Are we teaching our children to fight for the voiceless and speak for the voiceless, to be the voice for them? Are we teaching our children to be strong individuals, to speak up when they see something that's wrong? Or are we raising children that just can walk by someone getting beat? You see people all the time. A woman might be out there getting beat in the parking lot. People will walk past. Somebody is yelling at somebody. People will walk past. Somebody pulled someone over and they're using excessive force. People will walk past. You know, what's going on with Colin Kaepernick? People are like, I'm still watching the game. I'm still going to a game. I'm still wearing my jersey. I'm sorry. I'm a ride or die Baltimore Ravens fan, but I am on strike too. I'm not watching a game. I had an opportunity to go to the game. I'm not doing it. My daughter put on her Ravens jersey yesterday and I was like, take it off. Because other people are like, well, I got mouths to feed. I got a job. But Dick Gregory was like, bump that. Right is right, is wrong is wrong. And when you're speaking up for people and you're fighting for what's right, God got your back. Everything will be provided for you, but people don't see it like that. We're in a me society where people are just worrying about them, period, and not worrying about someone else being mistreated. But that's a whole nother video. But yeah, I'm just talking about Dick Gregory's homegoing service. Don't get me, talking about injustices and what I think people need to do. Like you, I have an opinion on that as well. All right, so back to Dick Gregory before I disconnect, because I don't want to take up too much more of your time. But I was just honored to be a part of Dick Gregory's homegoing service. And Minister Louis Farrakhan did the eulogy for Mr. Dick Gregory. So, and that was moving, that was powerful. Like I said, the funeral we got there like I think it was over like 9:30, long day. And then it became a joke because you know how Sandman, if you watch Showtime at the Apollo, they were trying to get some of the people off because some of the people were only supposed to speak 3 minutes. And, when people they're speaking about somebody that they love and they're telling stories, it lasts a long time. So they were trying to, shoo them off of the stage. But let me tell you a cool story. So I told you earlier I was looking for a vending machine because it was a day long. The long was day. Today is long, clearly. The day was long. I'm trying to speak fast. The day was long. And I was looking for a vending machine. And I was like, well, let me just go into the bathroom. So I went to the bathroom to use the bathroom. I saw an older lady there. I smiled. I did my business. She did her business. So when I came out, I'm telling you, people talk to me all the time. All the time. I say it's not me. It's the God in me. It's something that they see. And she was in there looking beautiful as ever. And she looked at me and she was like, I was washing my hands. She was like, I'm so nervous. And I was like, why are you nervous? She said, I'm about to speak, for Dick Gregory. And she was like, there were so many powerful and amazing speakers, and it's just me. I don't know what to say. And I said, well, hearts connect with hearts. I said, go out there, be honest. I said, go out there just being you and connect to someone's heart. If you speak from the heart, people will receive it. And she was like, I'm glad I came in here. She was like, you have no idea how that helped me. And I asked her what her name was. And she said, Faye. So I went back to my seat and I looked and it was like Dr. Faye. She's an attorney. She's accomplished. She fought the good fight with Dick Gregory. She was one of his closest friends. And I had that moment with her. And she said something that I said to her changed her perspective, and it made her more comfortable. And I was like, how cool is that? So I think maybe about a half hour later, she got up to speak. And when she got up to speak, and I stood up, I was like, hey, that's my friend. That's my new friend. And I was telling my daughter was laughing because she knows her mother. And when I tell you that lady got up there and killed it, she would have been just fine without me even saying my few words to her. But I thought it was pretty cool that she went up there and she started talking about all the amazing things that she and Dick Gregory did for people, and the things that they did and how he inspired her. I was like, oh my God, how cool is that? So that would be something. And she doesn't know my name. She doesn't know who I am. It was just people connecting. And that's what it's about. And then, what's the guy's name? And I wish I had my program here. White guy from MSNBC. What is his name? Can't think of his name. What was his name? I can't think of his name. But clean cut white man. Like clean cut. Like you would never, and this is why you can't judge a book by its cover. You would never know that Dick Gregory was his hero when you see him. But when you hear him talk about Trump and talk about, politics and the things that aren't right and the injustices on MSNBC, you will understand who his hero was. But by looking at him, you wouldn't. And he talked about Dick Gregory being his hero, and he talked about reading all of his books and how he inspired and influenced his life. And he became, he said after he reading his books, he became a vegan like as a teenager, and just the influences. So a lot of people talked about the influence that Dick Gregory had over them just by his books, his words, his presence, his fight, his way with people, his humanitarian efforts, just a lot of ways that Dick Gregory inspired a lot of people to think outside of themselves. So the funeral was packed. People were hollering and screaming, and with all of the speeches and the performances, and it was just so many. When we were looking at the program, we were like, this person's here, wow, this person's here, this person's here, but it wasn't to look at them as a celebrity. It was looking at them like I look at them, like I look at Dick Gregory, except the only difference is they had personal relationships with Dick Gregory. And you guys know someone can impact you even if you just see the work that they're doing, or if you read the words that they're saying, or if you hear about them doing amazing things that can inspire you to become better, or to do amazing things, or to fight the good fight and fight for what's right and fight for other people. So I was just so fortunate and thankful enough that I got a chance to attend Dick Gregory's homegoing service. They called it a homegoing service. They called it a celebration of life. They called it a tribute, and it was all of that. I wish I could really walk you through each part of the funeral, but I'm just like, we were part of history. We got a chance to see him. His casket was right there. It was, his family was right there. As I said, Dick Gregory has 10 children. His 10 children were there. All of their children and extended family. His wife of 60 years was there. So we got to celebrate Dick Gregory's life with Dick Gregory's family and the people that knew him best. There were so many speakers. That's why the funeral was so long. There were so many speakers speaking about Mr. Gregory and his efforts. There were montages, there were performances, there were speeches. There were just, it was amazing just to be in there. So R.I.P. Mr. Dick Gregory. I've taken enough of your time trying to fit in 7 hours of the celebration of Dick Gregory's life with you guys, but I just wanted to share it with you. If anything, encourage you to Google Dick Gregory, see all of the amazing things that he's done, purchase his books, go on YouTube, see some of his speeches, see some of his comedy. He was a funny comedian, and he was one of the first that ever did it. And they made sure they pointed out stand-up comedy. Dick Gregory invented that because there was never a black stand-up comic. There was never one before Dick Gregory. That's where the term came from, where he said that he would stand there flat-footed and do comedy. And he was the first one to do it to any white audience. He was the first black comedian to be on any white talk show and sitting down. He was the first. He was a pioneer. So when you hear stand-up comic and you go to the comedy shows and all of that, remember who did it first. It was Dick Gregory. And he paved the way for Bill Cosby, because when Dick Gregory went to fight the good fight and decided to fight for the injustices and the civil rights of us, Bill Cosby was next in line as far as a comedian. So as far as mainstream and unfortunately white people liking him and all of that, he was next in line. So if it wasn't for Dick Gregory's sacrifices, Bill Cosby wouldn't have been as big as he was. And I'm not talking about the Bill Cosby that's in the news now. I'm talking about back in the day. And Dick Gregory was, what, 84? 84, 85, I think 84, when he passed away. So think about that. That's really not that old. And for him to be the first one, you know, with African American history, Black history, you already know we're late. You know, when people were doing things in the 1900s and the 20s, and we weren't given our breaks till way after that. You guys already know that history. If you don't know that history, shame on you, and you need to Google it or sit in a history class, because it's not just African American history. It is history of this nation. So you want to really just look at the people that did it first, the people that paved the way makers to allow you to do the things that you're doing. His nephew was there, and his nephew is a comedian, and he was hilarious. He was funny. He went in, he started his joke like, wow, this church is so huge. Remember I told you that seats 15,000. He was like, this don't make no sense. He was like, this church just has unnecessary money. And that's how he came out. And he was just paying homage to comedians, especially his favorite comedian, his uncle, Mr. Dick Gregory. So many things I could share with you, but I just wanted to touch on a few things about that funeral and encourage you to research Dick Gregory and see all the amazing things that he did. And hopefully he inspires you to do amazing things too. Thanks for watching. God bless.